45.1 or maybe
Yeah,
50% of
it could go
that,
up to 50.
okay, of whatever we spend, or of $1 million?
Of the $1 million, they will pay 45.1%.
Right, but
If the
supposing
project-
we only do 800,000, suppose we only spend 800,000.
They're gonna pay the base rate percentage of what we ever expend up to $1 million. So if we spend $800,000 instead of the $1 million, they'll pay 45.1% of that, and then we'll be on the hook for the other part of it if we choose not to go forward. If we choose to go forward, then that portion will also be bonded in the project and paid for over, that's up to the finance committee, 40-year bond? 30 or 40-year bond, you know, it's more a finance committee question, but, you know, we're not gonna have to come up with that cash.
Okay, and I had a question, I think it was slide 2 with the room sizes, 560 is what we have.
576.
776, and then 900 was the state requirement.
That's an example of one type of space. We took classrooms as an example. We can do it with a lot of other spaces. For example, out of our 20 classrooms in the high school, 19 out of the 20 do not meet the MSBA guidelines, and those range in size from 770 square feet to 576 square feet. So the 900 square feet is the minimum for reimbursement as a guideline by the state for a classroom size. If you want to take, for example, we can look at the gym space in the library, and both of those, our gym and our library in the high school, are more than 20% smaller than the MSBA guidelines. And that's what the MSBA is saying for minimum for reimbursement. So if you're going, we're not talking about a Taj Mahal, we're talking about state minimum guidelines. We're 20% smaller currently than what they'll authorize to reimburse you on.
Now, if I may ask, for the benefit of people who are listening, when the state comes up with a size requirement, without having to go through too much detail, how does the state really do that? I mean, if our school has X amount of students, the size that they're talking about, say the gym is too small, the library is too small, 900 square feet should be for a room, may not apply for another town. So how do they say for North Reading that your room sizes are too small and they should be larger? Is it?
That's a good question. They'll get into that during the next phase. As far as a blanket number, they've got ranges for each different type of space. They have a minimum requirement that you need to meet at each different range based on what you're looking at. But when you get into that feasibility study and schematic design portion, the state is sitting in. We don't just come up with a plan and then go to them. They're in on these meetings, and they're having heavy input on that. How they arrive at where they get these numbers from, that's probably a question for Brad Dorr of the architectural firm.
I can remember from those discussions, I think they base it on total student population and whether it's a middle school or high school size of students. And then they say it's between 900 and 1050 for an average classroom size. They don't say it's specific for North Reading, it's statewide.
Right, right. So if North Reading's student population at the high school is 600 students, I think it's somewhere around there. 732, okay. When they look at those numbers, they're gonna say a school of that size needs this.
Right, so if it's another school in the western part of the state, the same size population as high school, it's gonna be the same number of square feet.
Right, so, and obviously if we had less, then the rooms sizes would be less.
You know, now you'd have to look at.
That's why you do the feasibility study.
Between, 500 and 1,000.
The reason why I asked the question, if you look at, maybe people watching on TV or read this in the paper might say, well, how can you generically say it has to be 900
That's a good
feet,
question, and basically the answer is that the state is looking for minimums that they're gonna reimburse on. They don't wanna go building a school that it's gonna have an average of 576 square feet and spend all this state money on it and then have the buildings and the spaces be too small. So they've got all this criteria. They've got a criteria for a science lab space, and there's a range. They have a criteria for the number of science labs per class. We only have 2 science labs in the high school that are true science labs. All the rest are being used as classrooms, and there's even a slide to that effect. The teacher can barely walk in the front area between the front row. I went in that room, I took that picture, and there's about 3 feet from the front row to where the teacher literally stands and has to be bumping up against that front desk. And there's barely enough room to walk around in there. You know, we're packing it with 30 kids in that classroom. The classroom was built for probably 20 kids. You know, the building was built for 560 students, and we've got 732 currently in the same space.
Thank you.
The only thing that did happen in the past 2 weeks, the state does come out and evaluate the schools, and they did come out and evaluate the high school 2 weeks ago. So that's also gonna feed in a little bit to MSBA, and we're gonna get a better idea of what's going on.
Just
Mr.
in
O'Leary.
relation to the owner project manager, like a clerk of the works, is that someone, is the selection process done in conjunction with the state, or do we hire?
With the state.
With the
So
state.
is there a certified list of individuals? They have a list of-
Certified list of architects, certified list of OPMs. And then it's up to us to put the bids out there like we do anything
Right.
else. And then,
The state's actually done a pretty good job of cleaning up the act in this whole
right.
program, because it was out of control, and local communities had a little bit too
I
much.
think Newton Knott kind of put the big thing on as far as schools running out of control, and that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Kelleher?
Just to maybe try Jeff's question. I think the 900 or the 1,000, whatever the average size of classroom, I don't think it's dependent upon school or the town. It is a classroom size. So that if you're expecting a certain number of children in a classroom, you're saying that's what you need, whether it's here, or it's in Weston Mass, or it's on the South Shore, wherever it is, that's the size room you need for that number of kids.
Okay, that's
So
where I was.
it's a state standard. The size of the school, of course, is dependent upon the population.
And there's all kinds of
There are more of those 900 square foot rooms.
There's all
Mr.
kinds of mathematical calculations that we saw in the first feasibility study, and they have them for this one as well. They've just been updated, space by space.
Mr. O'Leary?
Yeah, I just think, the timing of this is both good and bad. And I say good first and bad because the times are tough, but the timing's very good on this as far as, we're right on the ground floor as far as the first set of communities that have been approved for, to take a look at a project and move forward on it. The reimbursement rate for particularly the architectural schematic designs and all of that, with them participating at almost 50%, is something that we have never been used to. And even if we don't move forward, we still get that level of reimbursement. So I think it's something we need to take advantage of and move forward with now, so that we know what we're facing and have a good idea as to what our real needs and what can be approved by the state and what the actual costs are going to be. I mean, no matter what we're looking at, it's going to be a lot of money. But as you pointed out, you've already got $10 million worth of projects that need to be addressed if we may have the current facilities in the near future. So that's $10 million you're pouring into these facilities and getting nothing more than what we already have.
You gotta keep in mind, out of the 10 million, if we have to go forward, you're at least gonna get 50 cents on the dollar back to do this. If we have to do the projects, the $10 million worth of projects, those go out at $10 million to the town.
Right, it's $10 million that we're paying out of pocket with nothing coming back.
The other way, at least you're going to get 50 cents on the dollar back to rectify, to take care of the problem.
Yeah.
is all I'm saying.
But really, I want to congratulate you for your efforts and sticking with it all these years.
The other thing I will say to you, that school actually was built, it was a high school, but it was a middle and a high school when it first opened up. So a lot of those classrooms weren't, they didn't have to be the size that they needed to be. But now it's changed. It's now become the high school, but it was still a middle and a high school when it first started.
Just one quick thing.
Mr. Prisco?
When we look at the money, if we don't do the project, and we talk about the $10 million, it's a $10 million in an old facility. That means a $10 million with an investment probably, who knows? That $10 million may only last us 10 years, and we're going to be investing another $10 million. So I don't want people to walk away saying, wow, it's only $10 million, and the school's back up and running. No, it's a short-term investment. It's a Band-Aid. So get ready to do another $10 million probably 5 to 10 years later. And we're going to keep on doing that over and over and over. And I know it is tough times, and I know it's challenging times, but I think this is definitely worth doing. And I would make a recommendation to the Secondary School Building Committee for those folks that really don't have an appreciation for the quality of the school, is to open up an invitation and take them on a tour. Take them through your facility, let them see for their own eyes before we vote. Okay, and I think they will have a different view, because what you're gonna do is take taxpayer money and keep reinvesting it in a bad building. And Greg, just so you know, it was 15 minutes to the second. So you're right on mark, 'cause I know you're gonna be giving this presentation at town meeting, I believe. So, it's very good. And, so you keep it to 15 minutes, I think the town moderator would be appreciative.
And I think that's a good suggestion. I mean, when we were looking to originally rehab the police station and the batch of the school, you know, we walked through with the video camera, with the tour, with the principal and with the police chief and everybody else, and it just ran over and over and over again on the local access channel, and it was very informative for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It was very eye-opening, and I think it certainly enhanced our chances of getting those projects approved over the years, so it's, from
I want
an
to
educational standpoint,
I want to bring up
do.
another issue, and it's from a lesson learned called the Swan Pond School. One of the adversaries of the Swan Pond School kept hitting on, what are we going to do with the Batchelder School building? Now, I know that we don't know what the state and the building committee are going to work out, but one of the proposals that was made by the building committee some time ago was to build a brand-new high school closer to the middle school with some shared facility. And if the project heads down there, we've got this building sitting out on 62. And the naysayers are gonna say, now, what are we gonna do with this building? So, I mean, a part of that building might make a good community center. But it's not part of the school project. And whatever we do with it is gonna cost some money. Now, you know, maybe in the school building project, demolition is included in the project, you know, in the cost of the project. But I think that you've got to come up with some ideas, and maybe this is, you know, outside citizens group that wants to pick up the ball and run, right? But people are gonna raise that question. And, you know, in the case of the Swan Pond School, in my opinion, it was enough at the time to sink that project.
And that's a good question, Mr. Messeri. And basically, we can't, as a group, answer that until we go into this next phase.
No, I understand that.
Because the
but-
state has our hands tied. We'd love to say this is exactly what we're gonna do with that space. We're gonna keep it, we're gonna tear it down, we're gonna use it, we're not gonna use it, the town. We can't make that judgment until we go into this next phase. But this next phase will address that, one way, shape, or form. And we'll have what the project is, what it does include and what it does not include. We may not have all the answers if the town chooses to keep a portion of it, but, you know, we can't get into that. We have to go to the next phase. Once we come into the next phase, then we'll have something for you.
Thing being is, I was hoping Mr. Sweeney would be here tonight from Dodge Road. We need parking at the high school. All right, so down the road, I would say, my personal opinion, it's not part of the board, that part of that building would probably have to come down just to generate more parking. I drove up there the other day. The kids have more cars up there than I've ever seen. I mean, I think every kid in the high school has a car that goes up there in the parking lot. So when you come to school nights, when you have parent teachers, you just can't move in that area. Or you have a large town meeting, you cannot move in that area. So that may be part of it, but like Greg says,
My
we're
point,
not allowed to.
I don't, my understanding is that may be your wish, Chuck, and the need may be there for that, but I don't even think you can come out and say that that's what's
Right.
going to happen.
I
The
agree.
state's going to dictate what happens with that building up there. And we may not be fortunate enough to build a new high school, we may be just refurbishing that high school too. So there may not be a part of
We
the
won't know
building to
until we
use
go
as
this
a,
next
we don't
stage. We
know.
don't know if it's just a rehab to the existing high school, if it's a rehab to the high school, including the middle school, if it's a brand-new building of a high school and nothing with the middle school, if it's a brand-new building with the high school and something with the middle school. We don't know, and we're not allowed to say.
Right.
We're not allowed to guess at that according to the new procedures. We have to go into the next stage. All the answers will be met. We'll have a project, and then the town's got to vote it up or down.
Mrs. Castro?
Greg, can you answer, I think, Mr. Messeri asked the question, but I want to make sure I understood it. The feasibility study is reimbursable at 41.1%.
45.
45.1 at a minimum. whether or not we move forward with the